Hey guys, welcome back to more political chatter. Today we will be talking about the 2026 US Senate races, the state of the race, and specifically how Democrats can carve out a landslide victory in 2026 in order to reclaim control of the US Senate following their defeat, following their loss of the majority in 2024. Now, it is very possible what we're seeing with the Trump administration's disastrous approval rating with Republicans sinking nationwide, it is very possible to see a Democratic sweep, a Democratic tsunami, some might say, in 2026, a D plus 8, a D plus 9, a D plus 10 sort of nationwide environment. A landslide for Democrats in any normal circumstance. And they might achieve that landslide nationwide, and they might achieve a strong majority in the House of Representatives and gubernatorial elections. But even still, it will be a very uphill battle to reclaim control of the Senate. And that is because we have to keep in mind here that Democrats are down significantly in the US Senate. In 2024, Republicans flipped 4 seats. They flipped Montana, West Virginia, Ohio, and Pennsylvania. That put them at a 53-seat majority to the Democrats' 47. That's a net of 6 seats for the Republicans in their majority. So that is really something to keep in mind looking ahead to 2026 because it will be so bad of a environment for Republicans in order, or it has to be such a bad environment for Republicans in order for Democrats to even have a shot. But in fact, they do. Now, this is according to the Economist approval tracker for the Trump administration nationwide, this is where Donald Trump and his administration's approval rating stands in every single state. You could see they only have a positive approval in only a handful of rural states where like nobody lives. So everything, with the Republican Party's unpopularity since Trump taking office, it really does create the sort of perfect storm that Democrats would need to even have a shot at taking back control of the Senate in 2026. If Trump was popular, it would be out of the question. Democrats wouldn't have a chance. But with what we're seeing now, it really does appear that Democrats have a strong chance of reclaiming Senate control in 2026. It's slim right now, but we will see how it grows. So there are 6 must-win states that I have outlined. Democrats will need 51 seats for majority, not just 50. They will need 51. And these are the 6 states. First and foremost, this should be the easiest to win, probably. Some might be easier, actually. But first and foremost is the state of Georgia. They should be winning the state of Georgia by at least a lean margin, as I've outlined in my forecast here. I currently have it as a 2-point win for the incumbent Democrat there, John Ossoff. And that is because, in fact, they do have a Democratic incumbent in this race. John Ossoff was elected in 2021 in that runoff. He has proven to be a relatively strong candidate, and just look at that fundraising. Absolutely insane. I'm seeing ads for John Ossoff here, and I live in New England. So you've got $42 million raised for John Ossoff, 16 or $15 million cash on hand. And he is just running a very phenomenal campaign, and in such an environment where it won't even be a bad environment for the Democrats, he should easily hang on. Especially looking at the problem Republicans have with their primary. No strong candidate has been identified in this primary. None are really seen as too electable. So Georgia should be easy, and I have no doubt that Democrats and John Ossoff will be able to hang in there. So that's 46 seats right there. Next, I would say, and right now I actually have it as a better margin than Georgia. Next, I would look to the state of Maine, which for the first time I have as a likely margin victory for Democrats there in Maine. And this is a flip, keep in mind. Susan Collins won re-election in Maine back in 2020 by 9% when he ran. It was an insane win because every single poll had the Democrat, Sarah Gideon, winning that race. So when Susan Collins won by 9 points on the same exact ballot where Biden won by 8, it just shocked the political universe. But things are very different. Now we're in a Trump midterm. You've got higher propensity voters turning out. And most importantly, you have a phenomenal, I'm talking godly tier candidate emerging in the state of Maine, the Democrat, Graham Plattner. Now, this will be quite an interesting primary because just today, the governor, Janet Mills, announced this will be a tight primary, and it'll be interesting to see where they go. Do they go with the more established, more safe, more liberal choice, Janet Mills, or do they go with the more leftist, more working class, blue collar, anti-establishment sort of figure, Graham Plattner? That will be very interesting to see. And if they go with Plattner, which I think Democrats in Maine will do, it will be an easy victory. That will be no match. Graham Plattner versus Susan Collins will be an absolute blowout. That I can guarantee you. So just like that, they're at 47 seats. And these are just the basics. I mean, these are not far-fetched wins at all. The states I'm characterizing now are going, in fact, this way in my current forecast. Next, they should look to the state of North Carolina, which is currently a Republican-held seat held by Tom Tillis. He's retiring, which I have flipping to the Democrats. That is because you've got another godly tier candidate emerging in the Democratic primary for Senate in North Carolina, that being the former governor, Roy Cooper. Very popular guy. He won 2 terms even when Trump was on the ballot. He's a phenomenal candidate through and through. He should have no time winning the Democratic primary and certainly will not have any trouble winning against the Trump-picked Michael Whatley in the general election. So, North Carolina, I currently have as a lean Democratic state, and that is another flip. So they've already flipped Maine. Now they are flipping North Carolina. That puts them another step closer to majority. Next, and this is the last state where it actually follows what we see in my forecast, that being the state of Michigan. This is, again, not far-fetched at all. In the state of Michigan, I think that if Democrats nominate either Abdul El-Sayed or Mallory McMorrow, I currently, in my primary prediction, I think El-Sayed will win. But if either of those 2 candidates are nominated, Democrats should be on track to win. Now, there is a third candidate in the race in Michigan. Her name is Haley Stevens. She is a U.S. representative who is really one of the first politicians I've seen to have negative charisma. I mean, the more words that come out of her mouth, the less you like Haley Stevens, which is just really difficult to do. But Haley Stevens somehow is able to do that, which is really stunning. So, if Haley Stevens is the nominee and she has been leading in some early polls, I doubt that'll hold. If there's a debate, I mean, she will just get crushed. But Mallory McMorrow and Abdul El-Sayed, I think, are both really phenomenal candidates, really running progressive campaigns. Maybe that would be tough in a Biden midterm in a Republican-friendly environment. But in a progressive, sort of lefty, positive environment anyway, they shouldn't have any trouble turning out the traditional Democratic voters and winning that seat there. Michigan have a lean margin for the Democrats. Now, next up, we will look to 2 states that I did not, that aren't necessarily favored to go towards the Democrats right now. Now we emerge territory where Democrats will have to make up some ground. These are the states that I do have going Republican in my forecast. But these are the next ones that are possible to flip before any others in order for Democrats to have a majority. So first, I think we should look to Texas. Now, Texas is quite an interesting state because after 2024, Democrats were doing. They had hoped for a Blexus, blue Texas for so long after it trended. In 2012, it voted for Romney by 16 points. 4 years later, Trump won it by 9. That's a 7-point trend. 4 years later, Trump won it by 6, another trend towards the left. And then in 2024, it turned way the other way and voted for Trump by a 14-point margin. Democrats' dreams of a blue Texas were gone just like that. So Democrats were really dooming about the state of Texas, but that might not be so accurate because when you look at specifically which part of the state trended the hardest, has been trending the hardest, I should say, towards the Republicans in recent years, from 2016 to 2024, there is a stark difference, and that is the Rio Grande Valley, with a heavy amount of Latino voters dominating the electorate in this area. These are the voters that have been won by Trump since his first campaign in 2016. Keep in mind, Trump is the most anti-immigration political candidate we have seen for decades, and he is the one that Hispanics have trended the most towards. I mean, some of these trends in some of these counties are just absolutely insane. From 2016 to 2024, 8 short years, you had Willacy County trend 40 points more Republican. Kennedy, 55 points more Republican. I mean, some of these margins are just insane. Look at that. Star, Texas, 76% more Republican from 2016 to 2024. Maverick, 74 points. I mean, just look. In 2016, Hillary Clinton, what do we look at? Star. Hillary Clinton won Star County by 60%. Trump won it by 16. I mean, it's almost beyond belief what we're seeing in some of these counties. But point being, it is the Hispanic voters that have been driving this trend. And when you look at these, I wish I had the Economist tracker still up, but you still get the idea from this map. Texas has taken one of the hardest swings in terms of disapproval against Donald Trump. You could see I mapped it out the other day in one of my other videos. They disapproved of Trump by a margin of something like minus 17 or something insane. That's more than, than like Wisconsin and Michigan and Pennsylvania. These states that Trump won by far less margins than Texas. He won Texas by 14, and he won Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania all by less than 2%. So why is there such a stark difference? Why does Texas disapprove of the Trump administration so much more than these other states? That is probably because of the sharp turn Hispanic voters, Latino voters, have taken against this administration. I mean, since day one, Trump has made anti-immigration messaging a top priority of his administration. Why is there such a sharp trend in Texas in particular? I would guess because of that Latino-heavy electorate. So Texas is finally in reach, especially because, again, there's a real perfect storm brewing for Democrats in Texas. They've got the immigration stuff. Latinos are back on their side if they could turn them out to vote. You've got another godly tier Democrat in the race, James Tallarico, the state rep from Austin, the pastor. And then on top of it all, you have a brutal Republican primary that might matter more than anything else, where John Cornyn, the incumbent senator, is being faced with a primary challenge by the attorney general, who is very more MAGA aligned, more Trump aligned, and a sitting U.S. representative from the 38th district, Wesley Hunt. So Texas could be one that Democrats could look to, and it should be the one that Democrats look to when looking for a majority in 2026. And finally, for the sake of the video, I will characterize Dan Osborne as a Democrat. He is the local union leader who is running as an independent in the Nebraska Senate race against the Republican senator, the incumbent Pete Ricketts. He is, again, a union leader, very, very lefty when it comes to these economic issues, right? Really is behind, like, the Bernie agenda, like, anti-right to work laws, universal health care, strengthening labor unions, all that sort of stuff. He is a progressive vote, and on any monumental issue, Build Back Better comes to mind. He would have been the very first to vote for that bill. He would have been on the Democrat side. I mean, certainly more of a progressive, more of a leftist than Joe Manchin or Kirsten Sinema or John Fetterman. But, of course, he's running as an independent because it is Nebraska, and Nebraska would never vote for a Democrat. So the next place they should look is Nebraska, because data shows, and past data shows, that this race will be one to watch. Both of these polls were sponsored by the Democratic Party and Dan Osborne, but in both, so, obviously there's going to be a bias towards Osborne, but still, it remains very close. In the most recent poll, Osborne actually led Ricketts by 1. In the poll before that from March, he trailed by 1. Now, and then in 2024, 2024, we need the regular election. Dan Osborne ran in that race, of course, if you remember, and he lost to the incumbent Deb Fischer by only 7 points. That was on the same ballot where Harris lost by like 20. So significant overperformance by Dan Osborne there. And if he could do it again in 2026, it might just be enough for him to win. So that would give Democrats 51 seats in the Senate. That is their majority. Republicans 49. This is how Democrats win. First, it's Georgia. Then it's Maine. Then it's North Carolina. Then it's Michigan. Then it's Texas. And if they knock all of those out, next they look to Nebraska with Dan Osborne. So thank you all for watching this video. I hope you all enjoyed. If you did, make sure to subscribe down below. That really helps out a lot. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Drop a comment to let me hear your thoughts on this, and I will see you all later.